Everybody has seen the clip by now. Blueface leaping over a child like the couch caught fire, sprinting through a doorway like a man who just remembered he owed money. The timeline did what the timeline always does. Turned him into a meme. Handed him a crown he did not ask for. Called him the fastest man in California and kept it moving. Nah, slow down with me. Because underneath the jokes, the Usain Bolt captions, the voodoo emojis, there is a story about a house nobody is actually running. A mother building a case file live on stream. And a name Karlissa Saffold swore she would never speak again, Chrisean Rock, suddenly floated as the rescue plan. Listen, the altar was the headline. The altar was never the story. Quick thing before we crack this open. If this is the kind of breakdown that keeps you locked in, tap the like, hit subscribe, ring that bell, because this one is going somewhere the timeline refused to follow. Let me walk it. Start with the where. Blueface Place. That same Los Angeles area property that keeps doubling as a content set. That same address foreclosure whispers keep circling like buzzards. And the phrase content set is doing more heavy lifting than it looks. That house, for the last 2 years of streams, podcast drop-ins, ambush press moments, and impromptu kick broadcasts, has been the physical backdrop for arguments, apologies, brand deals, birthday cameos, and at bare minimum 3 viral fights that ended in somebody unfollowing somebody. It is not just where the man sleeps. It is the studio. And that means whatever happens behind those walls is not private in the traditional definition. It is inventory. Hold that framing tight, because it changes the entire lens on every leaked clip that keeps sliding out of that address like it has a will of its own. The when. Early August. Days after the internet finished chewing on the July 20th boat party and the cheating confession right behind it. Understand what days after means inside the gossip economy. A story has roughly a 72-hour half-life before the algorithm demands a new twist. The altar clip dropped almost precisely on that buzzer. Right when interest in the boat should have been fading. Right when the confession should have been folded into old news. Timing that surgical is either luck or it is laundry. And in a house that has reportedly monetized every raised voice since 2022, luck stops being the first assumption you reach for. The what? His pregnant girlfriend, Nevaeh Akira, due, per Complex's reporting, on or around August 24th, was filmed during a live kick stream inside what viewers called a ritual setup. Candles in a pattern, offerings on the floor, a small altar built inside a closet. And Blueface walked in, froze, and cleared that room at a speed his high school track coach would have wept over. His mother's response. Not a private call, not a subtweet, not a drive-over conversation. A full multi-post campaign, complete with movie references, prayer requests, a pastor threat, a cleaner claim, and one demand she repeated like a chorus. Get that altar out of that house. And notice the delivery channel, because the channel is the message. Karlissa did not text, did not phone. She went live. That choice is the entire tell. Whatever was happening between mother and son had already left the family and been reclassified as a broadcast. Once you make a family situation a public performance, you are not requesting a resolution. You are requesting a verdict. And verdicts, unlike conversations, need an audience, which is exactly what she assembled, comment by comment, over the better part of a week. Set the table. 5 voices, no spin, just the record. First, the man himself. Weeks before any of this. July 17th, on stream, sitting right next to Nevaeh. Paraphrasing per Complex. I would not have made you my girlfriend if I was going to cheat on you. Filed understatements that aged in 72 hours or less. He did not mumble it in passing. He said it into the camera, on a live broadcast, next to her, in front of a viewership counter. The equivalent of a public vow with a real-time subscriber tally in the corner. Which means when the vow collapsed, it did not collapse privately. It collapsed with receipts. Timestamped. Clip ready. Purpose-built for the exact kind of montage his mother would end up amplifying weeks later. If you were sketching a slow-motion self-destruct sequence, that sentence is where you would light the fuse. 3 days later came the boat. July 20th. Chrisean Rock on deck. Nevaeh present. And the confrontation between them ended with Chrisean laying out the only terms she has ever actually cared about. When you start claiming your son, that is when the beef ends. No ambiguity in that line. And that is the part every meme page skipped past on the way to the jokes. That sentence is not a shot. It is a contract offer. In one line, Chrisean reduced the entire multi-year Blueface storyline. The arrests, the streams, the arguments, the aliases, down to a single, cheap, achievable ask. Acknowledge the child. No lawyers. No settlement. Just say the words in public. The fact that he still has not tells you more about the power distribution inside that family than any candle footage ever could. Then the confession, back on stream. Blueface put it flat. I cheated. I know. Sorry. And Nevaeh's reply is the one worth engraving. There is no reason to say sorry if you had intentions on doing it. That is a woman doing math out loud. Quietly. Correctly. She did not yell. Did not threaten. She dismantled the apology by exposing its logical impossibility. You cannot be sorry for something you planned. In a house where volume is the currency of the realm, she went the opposite way. Precision. Which is exactly the kind of composure that makes a certain kind of mother-in-law nervous. Because composed women do not leave when they are told to. They leave when they decide to. And composed women who are 8 months pregnant do not leave at all. Not until after the birth certificate is signed. Now rewind further, because this is the hinge that swings the whole door. While Blueface was still behind bars, Chrisean went on camera with something that read, at the time, like growth. I am sorry, Karlissa. I am sorry, Jaden. I apologize to that whole side of people. Hot New Hip Hop covered it. Read the copy with fresh eyes. Growth would have been apologizing to him. Or to herself. Growth would have been quiet. Off camera. On a call nobody ever posted. What she did instead was a public address, aimed at 2 named women, the mother and the co-parent, with amnesty extended to everybody adjacent. That is not a personal statement. That is a diplomatic communique. She was negotiating reentry rights into a family she had been publicly at war with for 2 years. And reentry rights, once granted, are extraordinarily hard to revoke. As we are about to see, one more from him. After the boat, Blueface posted a screenshot of Chrisean allegedly trying to come by the same night and captioned it as her wanting to be part of a circus. XXL ran the story. Hold that word. Circus. Because his mother was about to hire a whole traveling act. Sit with the irony. He called her the circus while live streaming from the center tent, in front of a paying audience, next to his pregnant girlfriend, 72 hours after admitting infidelity. In a saga where nobody's hands are clean, the ringmaster calling out the circus is either a lack of self-awareness so profound it borders on performance art, or a deliberate narrative pivot designed to move the chaos to somebody else's address. Given his track record with narrative control, put your money on the second reading. And then Karlissa, this week, allegedly typing with her entire chest. I need a priest or a preacher who specializes in demon removals in Santa Clarita. ASAP. Screenshotted from her live and circulated across every Facebook page that has a gossip beat. I read that sentence 4 times. Not because it was confusing, because it was specific. A city, a specialty, a deadline. Break it down like a classified ad, because that is essentially what it is. Santa Clarita, which narrows the credential pool. Demon removals, a service most clergy do not advertise on their websites. ASAP, which converts a spiritual concern into a logistics problem. Real panic does not come with a service specification and a zip code. Real panic comes with tears, incoherent posts, deleted stories, silence. This came with a checklist. Panic and planning were different clothes. And what she was wearing was not panic couture. Then there is the prayer barrage. Everybody say a prayer for my baby, please and thank you. Posted alongside a still from Carrie and a note that Jonathan was her only child, scared of scary movies since he was small. She worked that bit for the better part of a week. Because the Carrie choice is loaded to the ceiling. This is a movie whose entire premise is a young woman weaponizing her own power against everyone who underestimated her. That is the reference she picked. Not The Exorcist. Not Rosemary's Baby. Carrie. The one where the girl is the danger. Movie references on social media do double duty. They set the emotional temperature, and they tell you exactly how the poster wants you to cast the drama inside your head. Cast Nevaeh in that role for 7 days, and see how many followers still turn up neutral to the baby announcement. Oh, and the line that should have been every single headline. You know it is bad when I want Chrisean Rock to come get Jonathan. Sit with that. Because that sentence is a rupture in the entire storyline. This is the same mother who, for 2 years, treated Chrisean like the primary threat to her son's safety, sanity, career, and freedom. This is the woman who, per widely circulated clips, once physically intervened in that relationship on live camera. And now she is floating that same woman as the rescue call. Either something has genuinely shifted in her risk assessment, or Chrisean has been reclassified. No longer a threat, now an asset. And in a family that treats relationships like pieces on a chessboard, reclassification is how power gets redistributed. Let me connect the dots. February. Nevaeh announces the pregnancy on stream. Due date reportedly late August. And almost immediately, Karlissa publicly questioned paternity and pushed for a DNA test. Complex covered the earlier argument. That is the opening position. When the very first public act of a pregnancy is a paternity challenge from the paternal grandmother, you have effectively placed on record, permanently, publicly, searchably, that the child's legitimacy will be disputed until proven. That is not simply a personal jab. That is a legal posture. Because if paternity is ever formally contested later, the fact that it was publicly questioned in month 1 becomes part of the narrative any lawyer, judge, or mediator will read into the file. February was not a comment. February was a preliminary motion. Meanwhile, while Blueface was incarcerated, Chrisean made that apology. The one addressed to Karlissa and Jaden, framed around her son thriving alongside his siblings. Notice the mechanics. She did not apologize to Blueface. She apologized to the gatekeepers. Reception was cool at best, openly skeptical among the comment section. But apologies of that specific design do not require immediate reception. They require preservation. They are deposits into a relationship bank that do not earn interest until the day you need to make a withdrawal. Chrisean made that deposit while Blue was locked up. And Karlissa is making the withdrawal this month. That is textbook long play family politics. Then the release. Then July 17th, the fidelity promise. July 20th, the boat. Days after, the confession. The apology, the boat, and the confession all orbit the same two people. And the only person who benefits from all three landing in sequence is the mother who has been publicly at war with the girlfriend since February. Nevaeh took damage from the confession. Blueface took damage. Chrisean took a mild reputational bump, but nothing career-ending. The one non-participant in any of those three events who somehow ended the first week of August with more leverage over the entire household than she had walking into it was Karlissa. She did not board the boat. She did not make the promise. She did not confess. And yet by the 1st of August, she was the loudest voice in the whole story, running her own live stream, issuing directives about who gets dispatched to retrieve her son. That is not coincidence. That is ecology. She was the top of the food chain in a room where everyone else was too busy being prey to notice. Then the altar footage surfaced, and within hours, Karlissa was not reacting. She was mobilizing. Prayer posts, carry references, fatal attraction comparisons, the priest request with a zip code attached, a threat on stream to call the pastor who baptized Blue, a claim that a cleaner had already been dispatched, plus a warning to her own followers, demand a removal or get blocked. Every single one of those moves is a channel, not a message. A channel. Prayer posts route to the religious community. Movie comparisons route to casual scrollers. The priest request routes to Santa Clarita adjacent clergy networks. The pastor threat routes to Blue's spiritual accountability structure. The cleaner claim routes to the handling business wing of her audience. And the block warning routes to her own base, filtering the soft supporters from the ride or die ones. 6 audiences. 6 frequencies. 1 operator. That is not grief. That is broadcasting. That last one matters more than it looks. That is not panic mother behavior. That is list building. You do not threaten to block people unless you are counting who stays. And in the creator economy, a filtered list is a weapon. A pre-vetted audience that has passed a loyalty test is worth more per capita than a raw audience 10 times its size. Karlissa was doing what political campaigns call base consolidation. Every follower who pushed back got cut. Every follower who reposted got promoted by the algorithm through engagement. By the end of that week, whatever audience remained around her was, by design, sympathetic to whatever came next. And what came next was the Chrisean pivot. One more thread. Jaden Alexis, the mother of Blueface's other 2 children, reportedly drew her own line about the kids being around that house. And Karlissa publicly backed her, demanding an apology to the children and to Jaden. Translation. The 2 mothers of his existing children and his actual mother are now aligned on one side of the fence. On the other side is a woman 8 months deep into a pregnancy, outnumbered 3 households to 1. That coalition is not just social. It is structural. It means that if any custody, visitation, or paternity dispute ever surfaces around the incoming child, there are already 3 publicly established maternal figures on record with grievances against Nevaeh's presence in the home. That is a lot of coordinated testimony. Whether it ever reaches a courtroom or only ever reaches a series of live streams that shape public opinion about who belongs and who does not. Coalitions like that do not form by accident. Then there is the Wack 100 detail. She told viewers on stream that she blocked her son's own manager, the man who has represented Blueface since he was 18. Blocked. Because his response to the altar situation was some version of leave that boy alone, he is grown. That is a message to everybody on that payroll. Not only Wack. If the manager, the man who negotiates with labels, coordinates media appearances, and has arguably kept the artist's career alive through multiple self-inflicted wounds, can be publicly severed by mom over one dissenting take, then every producer, publicist, feature artist, and lawyer downstream knows precisely where the real leverage sits. Not with the label, not with the manager, with the family. That is a career-shaping precedent, dropped almost casually inside a live stream about candles. Zoom in. 3 fragments. Fragment 1. The closet. Karlissa kept circling one architectural detail. The alleged altar was not in a living room, not in a kitchen, not in any shared space. It was reportedly built inside a closet. His closet. Strip the theology off it, and look at what that framing accomplishes. It recasts Nevaeh as a guest misusing storage, not a partner sharing a home. 8 months pregnant. And the conversation is about whose closet is whose. In real estate parlance, closets are personal. They hold your clothes, your keepsakes, the things you would not want a visitor to see. To locate that altar in his closet, specifically, is to argue not just that Nevaeh was in the house, but that she had crossed into a personal, intimate zone she had no right to occupy. It is a subtle claim about consent, about ownership. And when you are 8 months pregnant and being litigated in real time on stream over whose closet gets used for what, the room stops feeling like a home. It starts feeling like a lease dispute in front of an audience. Fragment 2. The candle. Run the clip back. She reportedly says his government name, Jonathan, not the rap name, and blows the candle toward the doorway. And he bolts. His mother's read was, "She wanted you to breathe in that candle." Forget the spiritual mechanics for a second. A grown man flinched at the sound of his legal name in his own house. That is not sitcom timing. That is a decision he had already made about that room. His body made it before his mouth did. Because bodies remember what mouths deny. And the half-second gap between hearing your stage name and hearing your government name. For a public figure who has spent a decade building a persona to insulate himself from his private self, is the half-second where the mask slips. Blueface is a persona. Jonathan is a person. And whatever was happening in that room, it was happening to Jonathan, not Blueface. That is why the sprint reads the way it reads. It is not the rapper running from a bit. It is the man running from something that recognized him underneath the name. Fragment 3. The pastor bit. Karlissa repeated it all stream. She was going to call the pastor. She was going to report him. She was going to get her son disciplined by the very church that baptized him. It played like a joke. The chat treated it like one. But look at the structure underneath. Pastor. Priest. Prayer team. Cleaner. She was stacking spiritual authorities like witnesses. Every post is timestamped. Every demand is on record. If this family ever ends up in front of a judge over custody or paternity, and with a due date and a denied paternity question floating around, that is not a wild hypothetical. This archive walks into the courtroom as exhibits. There is a legal concept called contemporaneous documentation. Records created in real time, before the outcome is known. Courts weigh them heavily. What Karlissa built over the course of a single week, whether by design or by accident, is a masterclass in contemporaneous documentation of a household deemed unsafe for a child. Every live stream is timestamped. Every screenshot has metadata. Every prayer post is publicly archived on platforms with server logs. If anyone ever wanted to argue that the environment surrounding Nevaeh's pregnancy was contested from month 1, the evidence has already been filed. In public. For free. And one more, behavioral. Go back to Chrisean's apology while Blue was locked up. Look at who it was addressed to. Not him. Karlissa. Jaden. That whole side of people. In this family, the women who have circled Blueface have learned the shape of power. And the shape is mom first. Every ex-partner who ended up publicly exiled had one thing in common. They positioned themselves as Blueface woman first and the family's daughter-in-law second. Every partner who survived positioned themselves the other way around. It is not a rule anyone printed. It is a rule the environment enforces. Karlissa does not have to state it, because the outcome stated for her. And Nevaeh has been operating on the first model since February, which is why the maternal wing has been publicly hostile to her since February. One more before we zoom out. The language of ownership. Listen closely to how Karlissa refers to that address across her posts and streams. It is that house. The house Jonathan is in. His house. But rarely, if ever, their house. That grammatical choice, repeated across days, does an enormous amount of quiet work. It denies Nevaeh any claim to the residence. It reinforces the closet framing. It sets up a rhetorical universe in which one person is the resident and the other is the visitor. Even if the visitor is carrying the resident's child. Words are cheap. Repeated words are architecture. Okay, breathe. Because now we get to how the rest of the world packaged this. Complex covered it as a relationship story. The cheating confession, the argument on stream, the boat party. Their headline energy is basically rapper does rapper things, girlfriend reacts. What that framing flattens is the mother. In their version, Karlissa is background noise, when she is arguably the single most active character in the entire saga. Mainstream entertainment coverage is built around the artist as the primary protagonist. The label pays for that centering. The SEO rewards it. So when a family member is actually the protagonist of the week, the coverage often cannot find the language to say so. It defaults to what the template allows. Rapper, girlfriend, drama, which is precisely the gap this kind of breakdown exists to close. Hot New Hip Hop took the growth angle on the earlier apology. And credit where it is due. They printed the skeptics too, including the commenter flatly wondering how that family could ever trust it. Read that skepticism again now, months later, with Karlissa suddenly floating Chrisean as the cavalry. It hits different, does it not? Meanwhile, the clip pages and comment sections went full comedy. Voodoo jokes, Usain Bolt captions, clown emojis. That is the dominant read. And look, I get it. It is a funny clip. A man of his size clearing furniture like that. But comedy has a cost in stories like this. Every laugh is a redirect. Every meme is a pixel of context that never got consumed. The family that laughs loudest tends to win these cycles. Laughter is the closest thing the algorithm has to absolution. Blueface did not have to address the confession because the Sprint clip absorbed all the oxygen. And Karlissa did not have to justify the escalation because everybody was too busy watching Jonathan hurdle a couch. So Steelman the other side. Karlissa is doing too much. It is her adult son's house. His girlfriend is chaos. And mom live streaming about demon removals embarrasses him and inflames a family matter for view count. Honestly, there is a version where that reading is exactly right. A Christian mother, recently deep in her faith, walks in on what she believes is a spiritual attack on her son and her unborn grandchild. Panic sets in. Her instinct is to activate every resource she has. She is a live streamer. Her son is a rapper. Her audience is her toolkit. She reaches for what she knows. She overshoots. She makes it worse. But her intentions are protective, not political. In that reading, everything from the priest request to the Chrisean floater is grief on a public timeline, not strategy. And that reading is not crazy. It is just incomplete. Because that read only survives if you skip the timeline we just walked. She questioned paternity in February. The apology from the woman she is now floating as the rescuer happened while Blue was locked up. Months of runway. The block threats. The pastor call. The cleaner. None of that is improvisation. You can call it overkill. What you cannot call it is spontaneous. And overkill with a filing system is not overkill. It is a plan. Which brings us to the part nobody wants to say out loud. The mainstream read is tidy. A religious mother is scared for her son's soul. Well, I'm stepping off that bus. Here is the actual claim. This was never about the altar. The altar is the pretext. The cleanest, most legible reason Karlissa has ever been handed to do what she has reportedly wanted to do since February, which is to remove Nevaeh Akira from that house in a way where her son does not have to wear the villain's suit. The altar gives every party a graceful exit. Blueface does not have to break up with a pregnant woman on camera. He can claim spiritual incompatibility. Karlissa does not have to admit she never liked Nevaeh. She can claim she was protecting her grandchild. The audience does not have to feel bad about picking a side. The framing does the picking for them. Every party gets to keep their public reputation intact while the actual outcome, Nevaeh being isolated, delegitimized, and eventually displaced, proceeds on schedule. That is what makes it a pretext instead of a reaction. Pretexts serve the plan. Reactions serve the moment. This one is far too orderly to be the second thing. Look at the toolkit she is working with. She cannot evict the girlfriend. Not her house. And with foreclosure chatter reportedly circling the property, nobody is rushing into a legal fight. She cannot order Jonathan out. The direct route has been tried for months. So she reached for the one lever that has always worked on Blueface specifically. His image. And his image is uniquely fragile because his image is uniquely leveraged. Blueface's entire brand runs on being unbothered. The guy who cannot be embarrassed, cannot be humbled, cannot be caught slipping. That brand is worth money. It is why he is still a name a decade into a career built on a novelty flow. And nothing damages that brand faster than a viral clip of him sprinting away from something small. Karlissa knows this. She has spent enough years around this one to have that ledger memorized. The sprint clip did not just embarrass him. It devalued him. And she did not leverage that damage on his behalf. She amplified it. That is the move that gives the whole game away. And I want to be fair for exactly one breath. Strip the theatrics off. And there is a real woman who has watched her son cycle through chaos for years and concluded that the only language this situation understands is public pressure. She is wrong about the method. I am not sure she is wrong about the diagnosis. Because tucked inside all this theater is a real tragedy. Karlissa has almost certainly tried the quiet route. Every parent of an adult child in a relationship they distrust has tried the quiet route first. The private conversations. The pointed hints. The I just want what is best for you dinners. And when the quiet route fails, some parents accept it and step back. Others go public. The choice to go public is often a confession of failure at every other level. That does not excuse the escalation, but it does explain the shape of it. Okay, breath is over. Back to the autopsy. She never told him leave her. She told the world. In effect, everybody just watched you sprint away from a pregnant woman, and I will personally make sure nobody forgets that footage. Those sprint memes she has been amplifying? She is not embarrassed by them. She is distributing them. And the Chrisean card is the tell. Read you know it is bad when I want Chrisean to come get Jonathan as a mother, and it sounds like desperation. Read it as a person who has watched this family operate for years, and it is a depth chart. Karlissa spent the better part of 2 years treating Chrisean like a natural disaster. You do not reverse a designation like that in public unless the reversal itself is the weapon. Because what does floating Chrisean actually accomplish? 3 things at once. It tells Nevaeh there is a replacement warming up in the bullpen, with history and a grandson already inside the family. It tells Blue the door he keeps leaving cracked. His mother is now holding wide open. And it tells the audience to pick a side, because she has already picked hers. There is a 4th thing the Chrisean floater does. It launders Chrisean's reinstatement through Nevaeh's demonization. Under normal circumstances, welcoming Chrisean back into the fold would cost Karlissa credibility. She would have to explain the 2-year war, the physical incidents, the public disavowals. But if Chrisean is being brought back not as a partner, but as a rescuer, the framing does the explanatory work for free. I do not like her either, but she is the lesser evil right now is a much easier public position to hold than I changed my mind about the woman I said was destroying my son. One requires an apology. The other only requires a common enemy. Karlissa did not just float Chrisean. She built her a runway. And the jabs write themselves. She reportedly received Christ. Recited John 3 verse 16. Got the full conversion welcome from that family. And the moment an altar appeared inside a closet, the same people who celebrated her salvation went shopping for a priest. Grace with a return policy. Real conviction survives disagreement. Conditional conviction gets weaponized the moment a household member steps out of line. If the same John 3 verse 16 that was recited over Nevaeh's welcome cannot accommodate her spiritual differences without a citywide priest search, then the belief system was never really the point. Belonging was the point. And belonging in this family has always been probationary. Blue reportedly told Nevaeh he has authority over her through Jesus Christ, per his mother's own retelling. Authority. From a man who spent July making a promise on a Thursday and breaking it by the weekend. That word is doing serious cardio in that house, because authority is what people reach for when respect stops holding. Nobody in a functional relationship invokes divine hierarchy to win a Thursday night argument. The claim itself is the tell. The moment a partner has to cite scripture to enforce leadership, the leadership has already collapsed, and the scripture is the funeral. And look, almost against my own will, a sympathetic thought. Nevaeh, deep in her 3rd trimester, arguing about trust on stream while her due date trends as content. That is a brutal way to spend the final weeks of a pregnancy. Somebody in that situation deserved one quiet room. She has not gotten one. The final weeks of a pregnancy are the ones every obstetrician in the country will tell a patient to protect. Sleep matters. Cortisol matters. The physical proximity of conflict matters. Whatever else can be debated. The fact that a woman 8 months into gestation is spending her days managing a public opinion war, a cheating scandal, and a spiritual denouncement campaign is a legitimate concern that transcends any team you are rooting for. Babies feel the household they arrive into. That one is being introduced to the noise early. Then there is Wack 100. The fixer. Benched. Blocked. Over an altar. The single most connected person in Blueface professional orbit, thumbs down by mom. Every A&R rep in Los Angeles who might have been considering placing a feature, offering a bag, or booking a session with Blueface just watched a manager get benched for saying he is grown. Do you go through Wack, who may not have real authority anymore? Or do you go through the mother, which is a completely different professional protocol? Uncertainty at that level slows business. Slowed business shrinks bags. Shrunk bags eventually reach the artist, which loops right back around to his image is his one lever. And she just tightened it one more notch. Everybody keeps asking whether the altar worked. Wrong question. Ask who it is working for. So where does this go? 3 trajectories. No labels. Just paths. Most likely path. The due date reportedly lands this month, and babies shrink every timeline. The altar footage quietly disappears. Nevaeh either posts a soft focus reset or goes dark entirely. And do not act shocked when Chrisean just happens to be around more. Not officially. Not announced. Just present. With Karlissa suddenly unable to recall why they were ever feuding. Blueface, meanwhile, will say nothing of substance, because he never does when silence is the profitable move. The man weaponized the sprint. Whoever controls the narrative after the baby arrives controls the year. And watch the birth announcement itself, because the first photo will tell you everything. Who is in the frame? Who gets tagged? Which grandparent gets the proud caption first? What surname shows up on any paperwork that leaks? Those details, in a family that operates like this one, are not accidents. They are position statements dressed up as milestones. That announcement is not just a birth. It is a scoreboard. Now the flip. He chooses her publicly. It would not be the first time Blueface zigged against his mother's broadcast. He has been on camera before calling Karlissa the root of the family drama. If he decides that sprint clip wounded him badly enough that the only counter is defiance, expect the flag plant. DNA talk settled out loud. Baby name announcement. Loyalty stream. That path snaps Karlissa's leverage in half. The failure prediction flips sides. Push past that point, and mom loses access. And access, not approval, is the real currency in that family. Watch the Wack line as the tell. The day that block lifts is the day she has accepted the new reality. Watch for the second-order signals. A Nevaeh-produced content series with Blue as co-host. A joint interview with a friendly podcast. A coordinated brand partnership rolling both of them into a single business entity. Those are the moves a couple makes when it has decided to formalize itself against family opposition. If any of those signals appear in the first 90 days postpartum, you will know he flipped. And the long one, 5 years out. Once the dust settles, this whole era becomes lore. The altar clip gets filed next to every other artifact of the Blueface extended universe. A kid grows up with a searchable birth narrative containing candles, a sprinting father, and a grandmother's demon removal wand ad. In the creator economy, family conflict is a renewable resource, and this family knows exactly where to drill. That child, whoever's DNA it turns out to carry, is going to grow up in an internet that never forgets. Every live stream that got clipped this month is permanent. Every meme is searchable. Every prayer post is archived. And at some point, when he gets his first phone and figures out how to type his own name into a search bar, he is going to read this era from the outside. What he finds will shape his relationship with every adult who is currently arguing over him. That is the actual long-term consequence of turning a household into content. The household eventually gets consumed by the audience that watched it grow. The altar gets removed. Or it does not. Either way, somebody in that house has already gotten exactly what they wanted. Sit with which somebody you think that is. You saw what the clip shows and what it does not. If this read earned it, you know the routine. Tap the like, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and do not wander far. The due date is coming. Part 2 of this file is already loading, and we do not miss a chapter. See you in the comments. Fight me down there.